Welcome to another episode of Tribe Radio, where the system ends and your sovereignty begins. My name is Ruben, just like the bird. I am your humble host, and today I have a very special guest. We have known each other from our childhood, and we finally meet again because we are both travelers in this world. Ruben, thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you for inviting me, man. Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah.
Would you like to present yourself a little bit to our audience?
Yeah, I'll do my best to create a clear image of who I am.
No pressure.
We have pressure enough, on that level. But for me, it's not that easy. I can't describe like a job that I do or something like that. But I am starting to discover with quite some clarity now that my job has been building a vision of the new world, and I'm definitely not alone in that. And more and more I'm realizing that I never really was asleep. That when I was 4 and I went to school the first day, that's actually when my conscious path of searching for the truth started, by way of problem recognition. I just saw school as a prison, because I was used to a big garden to play in, and with my little slingshot and my stick, and a wild boyish boy, I would say, and all of a sudden you're locked in and you're supposed to listen to this person that you never met before, that's standing in front of the class telling you how things are. And of course it's still quite playful at that age, but for me it was already too confined and too limiting, so I tried to escape. And of course they brought me back, and I realized like my parents are in on this, so I'm dealing with the adults, and they want to make me in this prison into an adult. Mm-hmm. And that made me question on that first day, because they put me in this little corner with the dolls and the wooden fake kitchen, and I was just sitting there thinking like, what is an adult? What do they consider normal? And then I realized, like, my mother told me that cars pollute the air, and we shouldn't stand behind the car because if you breathe it in, it's not good for you. And my brother was collecting these worldwide fund stickers of animals that are threatened with extinction. So I also knew that. So those two factors combined made me think like, okay, if adults consider it normal to use transportation with which they pollute our primary need for life, the air, our breath, and animals are dying out, they lost the connection to who they truly are. They are insane, and I'm not going to believe anything they tell me.
You were thinking about all these things when you were still a child?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but in a very compact way, of course, and that makes our thinking also more powerful, because my frame of reference was only those 4 years, out of which you probably don't consciously remember the first 2 anyway, right, at that age even. So you have a very small frame of reference, and the car polluting the air is a big thing in your little world. So it's like, okay, it's all very clear, actually. It's a very clear way of thinking because of the lack of information that you have, but the conclusion is solid. They're insane, they're polluting the air, they lost their way, they lost their the sustainability of their lifestyle.
Yeah, and as a child we really think by logic, actually, which in current day world is extremist right now, by the view of the society, the cult,
Absolutely, the truth is censored in all ways, shapes and forms in the Western world, at least, I would say, and in the whole world more or less, but in our parts of the world, in Northern Europe, Western Europe, it's pretty extreme, to the level where everything that is the repeated narrative that the media I see very broad, because also still social media is quite controlled, of course, through algorithms and all these kind of things. So the narrative that is pushed is completely opposed to natural reality and the logic of life. And there's a reason for that as well, because everything has a reason.
Of course.
Yeah. So that was my start of the path. Like, it was problem recognition, and from that moment I've been observing, and that created a kind of like almost passive bystander mode, because there wasn't anything I wanted to join in with, including the hamster wheel to make money. So I've always been like very alternative in the way I live, very low cost and very
nomadic, maybe
cash based, nomadic, big parts of it, yes, and always an interested student of life, because underneath there has always been the realization that ignorance is the cause, because these adults lost who they are because they pollute the air that they need to breathe. So obviously they're not respecting the body as the temple. They are on some kind of weird trip that has nothing to do with our natural reality and taking care of our health and happiness and these kind of things. So yeah, that's been my path, and now I worked and I am working towards a cultural narrative for the new world, and that's quite advanced already at this moment. So
I'm looking forward to talk about that as well. And I'm wondering now, we looked at the perspective of today's parenting is actually bringing over the program that they have been programmed onto their own children, who are still sort of new to this world, new to society, want to follow their inner butterfly, let's say. The pure soul wants to express itself in its pure form, but parents are programmed to reprogram that child into something else. You have become a new parent recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't have the opportunity yet, so I'm taking it now.
I bet you had some opportunities.
Yeah, of course. But I wanted to keep it for this moment.
Yes.
So congratulations, you're father now. How do you see parenthood right now from your standpoint as a new father?
Well, two lines come to mind, and this has been the main drive already for me for this cultural narrative. But before I was doing it for children like I was, and my own inner child, I guess, still on that mission, and I am, and I will be forever on that mission. Now there's an extra reality to it with a little baby boy, because the clock is ticking, right? And he's right there, and he's alive, and he's ready for a real path of initiation in this life, and clear symbolism that guides him through shared stories and traditions, which is culture, real culture. People usually don't even know what culture is. That guides him on his way as a natural being. And that isn't there. So those two things that come to mind is it takes a village to raise a child. And raising a child starts 100 years before the child is born, which I think both come from some Native American tribes, yet all our ancestors were aware of with 100% certainty in a distant past. And this is very confronting at the moment, because the Western society, which isn't really a society at all, but an anti-society almost.
It's a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult of isolation and distraction in order to make people dependent on technologies and money, which is again a medium in between them and freedom, and them and the natural world. And it leeches, it steals our skill sets away. So from things like building our own house, growing our own foods, hunting, living in a sustainable way in our local ecosystem as part of that ecosystem, and giving meaning to that life. So work doesn't exist, because they're just the things we're doing, and we give meaning to those things, like a ritual hunt and growing that food and having our medicinal plants and having our teacher plants as well, and ceremonies around that, and a real living harmonized culture. From that we have been put in this kind of room with the nuclear family. That's the base now, the foundation, and they're even tearing at that to separate the man and the woman, to make marriages fail with things like pornography and welfare, feminism, which is of course not at all about the feminine values that count, because motherhood is the most important job in the universe. So it's not real feminism, it's anti-feminine, an anti-feminine program.
Yeah, it's anti-family.
It's anti-family.
It's taking apart.
Yeah. And the perception of sexuality is part of that, seeing sex as a consumer good, instead of a creative process out of love to raise the future, to create the next generation that is the future, which is the reality of our world. No matter how much AI and how much technological progress we are making, this will always be the reality of our world. The next generation is the future. The humans are the creative consciousness on this planet and in this universe, possibly. So this is the challenge. We've been put in these little boxes. For me now it's a mobile box, together with our partner to raise a child, but the child is influenced by the environment. And if you can't have a safe environment to send out your child to play on the square or a field with the other kids of the other conscious parents, you have a problem, basically, as a parent. Sorry?
Can you describe the problems that you face?
Well, one of the obvious problems is that most people still are unaware of the fact that we're being poisoned through food and EMFs and all sorts of other things. The water, for example, from the tap,
especially
with the
in the Netherlands,
and the leftover residues from pharmaceuticals, which are also poison. They're not really medicine. No one heals from taking more poison. It might take the symptom away temporarily or maybe forever, but the underlying body gets more and more toxic and more sick, and new symptoms will develop. And this is all known, this is not me making this up. So many people are unaware, right? So when your child just runs out, we lived in the UK for a while, and people just, the school even just gives them toxic candy and tells them toxic things, about boys that can become girls and this kind of nonsense. Like these totally fabricated concepts that some people believe in, and they seem to have assumed that their belief makes it a valid reality. Like that, because they believe it, it's real. This is ultimately a total misconception, of course, and even a mental disease, I would say, that needs some serious attention and some serious grounding in natural reality. But those places normally would be a loving community, where we sing the same songs with meaning, where we grow up with stories that have meaning, where we understand what Sleeping Beauty is about, for example, where we understand what the King Arthur story is about, for example, where we understand what these mythological stories mean, these metaphors mean, in order to keep us aligned with the eternal order and the eternal laws of life and of nature. And if we lose that, then through repetition a child can be taught anything. You can tell them they can fly and they will jump off the building and kill themselves. It's really like that. If everyone says, yeah, of course you can fly.
Peter Pan.
Yeah, of course you can fly, and your uncle says like, yeah, try it, man, try it. 4-year-old boys will jump. They will jump, and they'll die. And this is not.
That's the danger of governments worldwide right now, is that they are actually raising our children, and so also the new adults of the world. You could compare, for example. You could compare, for example, jumping off a roof with the vaccines that everyone took without a question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again assumption of some form of external authority telling you what to do. Take this injection, there is a dangerous virus on the loose. And then people, the followers of this world, without questioning, let their bodies be injected with something they don't even know. They don't look up the ingredients. They don't research what these ingredients would do. They don't do any of that stuff. And this is the bigger problem that has been going on, or challenge. Well, problem. Yeah, you can call it a problem. Like for thousands of years already. It's not new. We're just, since the fall, I'll use the symbology of Christianity with Adam and Eve, right? And the masculine energy, Adam, that's the speaking, giving energy, like in the yin and the yang, is the yang. And then the yin, Eve, the feminine energy, is the receptive energy. So in Buddhism and many other spiritual teachings, to receive what is, without resistance, without some kind of projection on it, is the highest form of awakeness. And in Christianity, this is Eve rising again. Mm-hmm. The receptive part fell. We started to project our belief system on the living truth of this world. And this inherent it's not even a flaw, but this trait of humanity, it's a stage of development as I see it. We were naive human beings then, and we started to assume. And now slowly through this process of assumption and the result of that, because if we assume from the experts, the media, the priest, and now it's gone to the level of AI even that thinks for us, right? I'm working on these cultures and I'm putting all my input in there. And my beautiful companion who helps me gets all this information that took me my whole life to gather, and he uses AI to formulate it. And then he also has this beautiful story, but he just kind of gets it through the AI like that. He's a genius. I don't want to like take away from him, but in this example, he just gets this story. And this is what people do. They use it more and more instead of Google, which was already the same thing, you know, just level 25.0 or something. Mm-hmm. Because first we had newspapers or pamphlets, then we had like, or the church songs or the Bible, you know, then we had these pamphlets, then we had radio, then we added television, then we added the internet, then we added social media on the internet, then smartphones, you know, were combined with that. And now we're at the level that AI is available all the time, and we're in this like Internet of Things kind of thing, the beginning, and robots. And so not only are we outsourcing our thinking, we're also starting to outsource our doing to robots that also do the thinking. Yeah. So basically that whole thing originates in a slave mentality, where we perceive work and thinking and doing as something we don't want to do.
Yeah.
But when we start admitting to that kind of like laziness in a way, or perception that is in the wrong way, because, you know, before we liked hunting, we liked gardening, we had songs that went together, harvesting the fields, you know, it was a big celebration also after that. So we were looking forward to do the work and to reward ourselves, and there was no work. It was all just living. Yeah. And that's the big difference. When we take that all away and we have this robot stuff which reduces the quality of everything incredibly, you know. I mean, they can make laser carved statues. Yeah, they're more precise than a human maybe would do, but there's no soul, there's no spirit in most of it. And on top of that, there's an element missing, an actual measurable element, the fifth element that would be in the soil, for example, to chromatography, I think it's called. They can get samples of soil. Wild, healthy soil has 4 layers. That's the 4 elements that are represented. When a human lives there and gardens there and is conscious with that garden, just living there and enjoying it, a 5th element appears. So there's actually something lacking when we are not living with the land anymore. There's something lacking in nature. We add something to it. I think it's love. I think it's humans love. You know, animals respond to that very strongly as well. Even a cat, such a vicious killer, a cat, such a predator. But how do they respond to a human? You know, they start like making purring, and they come to you and they want to cuddle, and then the same sweet little cat at night, he's a vicious killer. So he responds differently to humans. There's a difference, you know, and we can communicate telepathically with them.
Yeah, and
there are teachers in that even. So
I believe there is also a balance in everything, you know, in humans, in animals, in the ways we do things. As I see it, and why I created Tribe Radio, is that we are all sovereign, and the main theme also for my videos is to guide people back towards their own sovereign path. Because like you mentioned, and you came with great examples, is that the system teaches people not to be responsible for their own lives, giving away freedom for comfort, technology, you name it. But I believe that the things that happen right now in the world happen because of a major shift that is going on, universal, planetary, but especially also inner. This is why we are sharing our inner wisdom with the world. Even the language we use, little side note, is a slave language. We actually, by using the wrong words, we also manifest, like, how do you call these affirmations? They're actually affirmations. So when you say, for example, a very simple example that I use a lot is understanding. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I understand you. But by saying this, you say that you stand under the authority of someone, or even the belief system of something, you know? And that's why I like to say, I understand. This means I stay with my own sovereignty, I see your viewpoint, but I do not sacrifice my own freedom to be okay with your viewpoint. Do you understand? And while I'm saying this, a butterfly comes by.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I also understand in a sense of, I went through this whole process with words like that, like for many years. And I realized that there are no words that are really wrong, because they're all teaching us something. And for me, understanding is not about like standing under a person, but standing under a principle. And I do think we need to stand under principles, not to get lost in a kind of God syndrome as an individual, right? We need a culture of the shared mythology that I was speaking about, in order to have a frame of reference to hold ourselves and each other accountable without someone going into the personal level. So we are all part of this living mythology, and there is like a hero's journey, a quest of self-realization, and there we have to draw the sword of truth and reason and the shield of honor, virtue, which is honesty. So honest reasoning in order to uncover the truth together. And we are sitting around the round table of King Arthur, the mythology. We've drawn the sword out of the stone, which is the sacred word and the sacred tone, right? And that's what we watch. We watch our word and tone. And if they're sacred, it means they're whole, they're holy, they're inclusive, not in the way that these idiots mean, that talk about, you know, including all sorts of lost people,
creating labels,
you know, that kind of thing, creating labels and making it about the form. But we're talking about an inclusivity of a truth, a concept of truth, the real blueprint of this world, in which all of us, all of our authentic selves, no matter where you're from and who you are, fit. They fit in. And around that table we accept that the oneness is in me, the observer, the mystery at the core, the creator, the source, the cause. That's all words for the same thing. It's that observer at the core that looks through my eyes. It can see my emotions, it can see my thoughts, it can feel my physical sensations. My physical reality, this dream of reality, of matter and time and space in between, is reality. This is reality, and to receive what is can trigger things in my thoughts and my emotions. That I can observe from that deepest place, and I can be transparent about it, because I know that if the oneness in me connects with the oneness in you in full transparency, all evil is gone. Because there is no place for this clutter anymore when we open up like that. So we need these circles as a central aspect of our living culture of stories and traditions. And this is the center of real culture. And I need to open up to reflection, because sometimes I'll say something that is off, right? And someone will correct me. And then I need to see like, ooh, is this... Really listen, not have any kind of attachment to this ego saying this, you know. I will really listen and receive and correct myself if I was wrong, because there's no failure in that. It's all lessons. As long as you look at it like that, you will never fail. You're always learning, you're always growing, and the more you do it, the less of these little mistakes you'll make, and the more inspiring you will become. But it always comes from a place of authenticity, and for this we are restoring the circle. And what we have now, this old system of the caterpillar, so to say, before we go to the butterfly, right, of the circle, is pyramid based. It's a top-down hierarchical system, for the very reason that the fall, where Eve lost connection, right, in these people, in all our people, including my own parents, you know, my own ancestors, and I love them, but I see like, yeah, there's still parts going on there of this separated, fear-based projections on each other, and the identification with an image instead of this being, right? To be or not to be, that's the question, as Shakespeare said. Yeah. And there's a lot of these wise people, like even Einstein said some stuff about like peace can never be kept by force. It can only be realized by understanding, there's that word, of these principles, of the truth. Because if we share that truth, the drive to control, the drive of that pyramid system, that hell on earth, that now installed this whole media in between us, and the AI that that thinks for us, because they collect all this data and they can control all these technologies, of course, you know, including the blockchain as well, from by all the devices, you know, that tune into it, the apps and the things. They will always see what goes in, what comes out. It's a massive version of a control system again. But in the end, what it will realize, what I'm seeing now, and that's what I'm preparing for by setting up this new narrative for a new culture, because a lot of people will start to realize this. I think almost everyone. That through AI, which is designed in a way for that, you know, to give that machine more power, they will come to the conclusion, or their children will, from these people who are now, just like my parents are more asleep and your parents are more asleep, you know, in a way. With them this is also happening. They will come to the conclusion that the one self at the center is a reality. So that part that they try to keep secret societies, the secrecy by definition is like a tumor. It's like a disconnect. So it doesn't give them more power, it gives them less power. When you think about power as a flow of life force and a quality of life and a presence and a connectedness. So their drive to live in their little ivory tower, or their massive ivory tower with their private jets and, you know, their harem of like 1,000 wives, these oil sheikhs, for example, you know, the drive for them to keep that pyramid system going will disappear, because the conclusion will be so obvious. Also thanks to AI, funny enough.
Yeah, so they created something to obliterate us, to enslave us, but it's actually freeing us.
Exactly, because and there's a very simple reason for that, because once you realize the oneness within, and that's the deepest aspect of you, that's the central aspect that is really one with everyone, even if they're completely unaware of it, that is still in them.